Thanks so much, Jessica. And thank you all for your patience. Again, this is the Southern Prize and State Fellowships Literary Arts webinar. We are focused on a conversation for the fiscal year 2024 fellowships. We will talk for just about an hour about the process. And what I'll do is advance to the next slide. We have a bit of an agenda. We'll do introductions, brief overview of South Arts. We'll do a program overview for Southern Prize and State Fellowships for Literary Arts, talk about eligibility, the application, the program timeline in terms of the application for the FY24 cycle, and go through some contact information, as well as answer any questions you may have. We do have a process for you to ask questions and that we can, so that we can fill them here. And we'll talk a bit more about that. So first off, let's go into introductions. And Jessica, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Emmett. Let me go back. Your slides are advancing on their own.
Oh, no.
It's okay. We'll figure it out. Let me, technology always breaks. So thank you for your patience. I'm Jessica Hall, and I'm the Director of Organization Community Initiatives at South Arts, and I am just here supporting my colleague, Emmett. And so I will be doing some tech support and then also helping at the end answer questions. So as Emmett mentioned before, please put your questions in the Q&A. If we don't answer them as we go along, it doesn't mean that we're ignoring you. It just means that we're going to wait until that portion of the webinar and we will get to your questions. Thank you all for joining today.
And thanks so much, Jessica. It's our area has been suffering a bit of power outages as of late, especially coming off of a series of severe thunderstorms in the area over the last week or so. So thank you again for your patience. My name is Emmett Stevenson. I'm the Director of Artist Engagement. It's my job to connect artists with opportunities. And one such opportunity is this particular opportunity we will discuss today. Now, the Southern Prize and State Fellowships for Literary Arts is part of a much larger literary initiative that South Arts kicked off this May. It is the first prong of a multi-prong initiative to really celebrate, acknowledge, celebrate, and support writers in the South Arts region, the 9-state South Arts region. So more about South Arts. Our mission is to advance Southern vitality through the arts. It means we want to make sure that the arts is driving economic development and interest in communities throughout our region, and that the arts are always present in that conversation. We've been in existence since 1975. We're headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. We are one of 6 U.S. regional arts organizations. And yeah. So Jessica, do you want me to just go ahead and pull the slides back up, or?
It might be faster for you to do that just because I'm having some lag time. I was trying to adjust those transitions on there for you to get them to shut off, but.
And I don't have any notes on the presentation, so you won't see anything that I don't want you to see or you shouldn't see. So just a moment. So we talked about our mission. We are one of 6 U.S. regional arts organizations throughout nationally. We serve 9 southern states, and we currently manage approximately 21 programs. The states that we serve is Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. So more about the Southern Prize for Literary Arts through an overview. Again, we talked about acknowledging, supporting, and celebrating the highest quality literary work being created in the American South. The fellowships carry with it an award of $5,000 for each fellow representing each of the 9 states. Additionally, from among those 9 fellows who have been awarded, there will be an additional award, 2 additional awards, the Southern Prize winner and the Southern Prize finalist. The winner will be awarded an additional $25,000, and the Southern Prize finalist will be awarded an additional $10,000. Also, the program, we are using the Southern Prize and State Fellowships program to provide additional opportunities for fellows to promote their work and their writing practice. So in our guidelines, we went on and pretty much listed the different genres, literary genres that we will be looking to issue annual calls for. So of course, this year is fiction, 2024 is fiction. Next year, we'll be looking to consider playwriting, drama, and screenwriting. For 2026, we're looking at poetry. For 2027, creative nonfiction. And 2028, fiction for young readers. Now, on the guidelines that are on our website, we provided a link that pretty much broke down the different types, the subgenres of fiction. And here is a brief list, minus the young fiction for young readers. So this is a list. That link on our website pretty much goes into further detail in terms of the subgenres. And of course, there are possibly more. I know magical realism is one that may be embedded in one of these, as well as speculative fiction. But I mean, your work may be a combination. It may be one of these as is, or it may be some combination of multiple of these. We are considering all of that. And the beautiful thing about this particular fellowship program is that we are looking to consider works that are published and unpublished. So we're looking to create a level playing field for those writers who have had an opportunity to have their works published, as well as who may not have had that opportunity, but may be creating some incredible work that has not really been exposed to a wider audience. All right, so on to eligibility. I'm going to do some very high level eligibility. Again, if you have questions related to the guidelines and what you've read, and you may not necessarily just want more additional information on eligibility, please ask in the Q&A section. So basic eligibility would be a legal resident of the South Arts region, one of those 9 states, for at least the last 2 years. Now I'm receiving a lot of questions regarding applicants who move between states within the region. That's perfectly okay. So if you've moved from, say, Alabama to Florida, and you've been within the region for at least the last 2 years, that's fine. On the flip side, if you receive an award, the expectation is that awardees will remain residents of the state in which they are awarded for the award cycle. And that's usually 1 year out. Again, at least 18 years of age or older, not a student studying in a literary arts subject. So you can be a student, but you can't be a student studying the literary arts. Actively practicing literary artists of fiction at any stage of the artistic career. Applicants should submit only 1 application per cycle And we are not considering collaborations for the literary arts fellowships. All right, so on into the application. This is a screenshot from our Slide Room application portal. This is the first page you see from the link that is listed here, southarts.slideroom.com. I want to talk briefly about some of the things you see. If you click on the preview button, there are some forms that you have to fill out. There are some attachments that you have to make, and then the media would be your work samples. So let's talk about each of those. So in terms of the forms, we are collecting for administrative use only. Our panelists will not see this information. Demographic information related to ethnicity, gender identity, and your birth year. Now, in terms of ethnicity and gender identity, we provide you with a number of choices, and we provide you with a choice that says you prefer not to respond. So if you do not want to answer that question, that is okay with us. That information does help us to assess our efforts in terms of our effectiveness in delivering the program and who the program is serving. So we use that, again, in an administrative capacity. We also request an artist statement of 250 words maximum. That's about 1,250 characters. So we have a link. If you need help in developing an artist statement, there is a link, multiple links on our website within the guidelines that will provide that type of assistance in developing the artist statement. Now, in terms of the attachments, the curriculum vitae are the resume. We are, again, this is some information that is not shared with our panelists. It's, again, something that we use administratively. We are looking for you to upload a PDF formatted file with a maximum page count of 5 pages. We are also looking for the front side only of your driver's license or state identification card. That helps us with a basis for establishing residency. Now, if you do not, there's something going on where you don't have a state issued ID driver's license from your current state, I ask that you give me a call or email us, and we can talk through some other ways to establish that residency, at least initially in place of the state identification card and the driver's license. So I do know in some cases, I've been receiving some calls about some cases where we need to work around that particular requirement. So the portfolio is really your work samples, and we are accepting a minimum of 20 pages and a maximum of 25 pages of work samples. They can be from a single work or up to 3 different works. And if you are combining, if you're doing excerpts of works, we ask that you include a synopsis page so that you can help the reviewers navigate what you are submitting. All of the manuscript should be double spaced, 12-point type. We list out Arial, Times New Roman, Helvetica, and other standard fonts and margins of at least 1 inch, top, bottom, and sides. So yes, the synopsis page should be double spaced. And I think I do want to provide some clarity or clarification. When I initially published this, we were looking at a blind scoring process or an anonymous scoring process. And since then, we are not doing that. We are not going to do that. So it's okay if you label the pages with your name, or if you don't, it's fine. The panelists will have your name information from the Slide Room application. So that's the only thing that they will have. Again, they don't receive your demographic information with the review. So Any of the forms that you complete in terms of ethnicity and so on and so forth, as discussed prior, will not be shared with the panelists. In terms of your work samples, we ask that you save and submit your writing samples as a PDF file. And again, ineligible work samples include works that are developed or created through a collaboration, or works created while the applicant was a student in a literary arts related program. Again, you have 1 to 3 items that you can attach. Again, they should be PDFs, and the maximum file size is 10 megabytes each. My encouragement for you in terms of this is if you can place all of your writing samples in one PDF file, including if you decide that you want to use a synopsis, if you can place that all in one file, that would be my recommendation to proceed that way. Again, you are open to attach up to 3 files. All right, so the application, some final thoughts from me is just to make sure your slide room profile reflects your current reality. And that is, you may have used Lightroom in the past and your information may have drastically changed. You may have moved addresses, you may have moved states. So, and I'm bringing this up because it's recently happened where I had to go back and get some current information from an applicant. So be mindful that your slide room profile is up to date. It's also information that we use to contact you. So make sure you monitor your email or phone number. If you don't use the email or phone number that you provide me or provide us with, just make sure you monitor that from time to time so that if we are in touch, that you can get back with us as soon as possible. So in terms of the review process and the jurors, the cohort of 9 state fellows will be selected using a 2-tiered selection process, and the jury will be a national jury. We will engage a second national jury to select from among the 9 state fellows, the Southern Prize winner and the Southern Prize finalists. The jurors will only consider artistic excellence that reflects the diversity of artistic expression, that reflects the diversity of artistic expression of the region. And a recap on the timeline. Again, our applications open Monday, May 22nd. The applications will close on Monday, September 8th. Reviews will take place beginning September and will hopefully conclude by March of 2024. We anticipate making award notifications by spring of 2024. And the funding cycle that we're looking at is June 2024 to May 2025. Here is my contact information. We'll make this presentation available on the website as well. Technical assistance is still available. You can schedule through Calendly at this particular link. This information is also on our website within the guidelines. Click on technical assistance and within the guidelines, and you can directly click and make an appointment with me. Now, I schedule those in 15-minute blocks. I find that that is pretty adequate time to really talk through any issues that you may have. My number is listed as well right here, 404-874-7244, extension 825, as well as my email. And you may receive an email from me from southernprize@southarts.org as well. So that is another email for the program that I use as well. All right, so we're at that point of the presentation where we're asking, you're asking questions and we're providing answers.
Okay, great. I'm going to start at the top then, and we'll move through these questions. If you hear an answer that that you may be anticipating, consider skipping your question. But let's start. There's a question here about approximately how many applications do we get for the Southern Prize?
We are over 200 so far.
Okay, so over 200. Thank
Yes.
you. Great. So moving on, someone writes, I've already applied. What if I learned something today that makes me want to rethink my applications? I believe that we have two questions in this vein. So is it possible for them to edit an application based on the information they've received today?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What you'll need to do is send me an email asking for the application to be reopened, and I'll do that quite right away. No problem at all. So if you need that to be reopened, you have to do it through email. Send me an email, and I'll send it as soon as you can, because September 8th is the deadline. I want to give you plenty of time to make any updates that you need to make. Not a problem.
Great. Thank you. The next question is, I know this is for fiction, but did you also have to include awards, publications, etc. for your poetry as well as on your Vita?
Okay, say again, Jessica.
So the question is, on their Vita or
Okay.
their resume, is it advisable to include submissions around other kinds of publications, poetry, etc.?
It doesn't hurt. It's not going to influence the award decision. I mean, again, the jurors they will not see the Vita or the resume. So this is strictly for South Arts records.
Great. Is there a specific kind of trend in fiction an applicant should avoid?
No, we don't have any advisement in terms of trends. What's really a running current through what we look to do with the Southern Prize program is really reflect life, whether it's in the South or, what's happening in the South in terms of literature. That doesn't mean it has to be about the South, but it just means, the cultural things that are happening here, all of the cultural diversity that we have, we want it to reflect or be a mirror for what is happening in the South.
Great. Someone wants some specifics about the artist statement. What are things that the panel or South Arts is looking to know specifically?
That's a tough question to answer. I think it's guided by your creativity in putting that statement together. I can't advise really beyond that. I think I would suggest that you look at the resources we provide in terms of crafting an artist statement, that you really look out, do some Google searches, Yahoo searches, what have you, and just really look at how other artists are presenting themselves in terms of our artistic statements, our artist statements, and go from there. But I think it is dependent on how you want to present yourself.
And Emmett, is it fair to say that an artist statement is typically about a body of work, not all the work that you've done?
Yes, you don't have enough room to really, in 250 words, you don't really have a lot of room to really
That's true.
do
Very
much.
true.
But definitely about focus on a body of work that you want the panelists to know about, or you want South Arts to know about, and go from there. I mean, and we're talking about the strongest body of work. So
Great, thank you. Another one question says, I live in the metro area and am a distance learning graduate student taking online classes through Harvard. Am I eligible to apply? Is there a ban on applications for all students or just those with temporary residencies in the South?
okay.
So it looks like there's two questions
Okay.
here. One about the residency. Um, there so it sounds like that this person has a permanent residency in the Atlanta metro area, but is taking classes online. So
Okay.
they are a resident of Georgia.
Sure. So as long as it sounds like the residency requirement is met, I'm a little unclear in terms of the student status. Are you a student studying a literary arts subject? Would need more information on that. If you are studying literary arts, that would be ineligible. If you are studying, I don't know, economics, you can apply. As long as it's not
Okay,
related to literary arts.
great. Do writing submissions need to relate to the Southern US? I believe you already
Yeah,
answered
and let
this
me,
one,
I
but it
think
wouldn't hurt to
I may not have been as
reiterate.
clear. Yeah, I may not have been as clear. It does not have to relate to the Southern US. So what we are looking for is the diversity of voices of the residents of the American South. So they can be
Right.
about a trip to France if you want it to be. So it doesn't, it doesn't have to be about the American South.
Okay, great. The next question is on the professional resume, should we only include items that occurred within the same time period as our work sample? For example, from 2016 to current time.
You can make it as extensive as you want. It's no limits on that. It's not a negative if you put more than the the 5-year period within the resume Auto Vita.
Okay. There was a comment about increasing volume. I don't know if both of us need to increase our volume on
Sorry.
here.
How is that? Am I louder now? Okay.
Great. This question, one starts with, thank you for sharing the information. Are emerging writers eligible? What career stage is this funding focused on supporting?
That's the beauty of the Southern Prize and State Fellowships for Literary Arts. All stages of artistic career, they're all considered. So emerging writers, as well as those who have a bit more experience, are eligible to apply.
And Emmett, I believe this was also answered, but just to reiterate, someone wants to know that their bio, in fact, does not need to be in the artist statement, correct?
That's
It's
correct.
pasted into the application. Okay, great. Is fiction for young readers excluded for 2024 since it has its own focus in 2028?
Correct. Young readers fiction is in 2028. So everything but young readers fiction is for the current cycle.
Right. This comment says your material says age is not a factor after 18, but also says you prefer a writer to plan to continue their work into the future. How does this preference affect your attitudes towards older writers? For example, someone in their 70s, such as the commenter.
Okay. We encourage applications from any demographic in terms of age. So we really don't look at age as a consideration, just as long as you meet the at least 18 years of age
Right.
eligibility factor. That's it. We don't really factor into it, if an awardee is 70 years old versus, someone who's 25.
And I'd imagine that information is not shown to applicants either.
It's not shown.
I mean,
No.
to the panelists.
No demographic information is shared.
This one person has a comment and kind of a question in it, asking for advice, is that they are preferred to write their resume in a narrative form regarding their life experience as a writer, more so than as an employee, speaking specifically to their resume. They just want to hear your thoughts on that. A resume of work life does not necessarily reflect a writing experience. Could you please give them some guidance regarding that approach, so doing a more narrative approach to creating a resume? They want to share their high school and writing experience from the editor of their high school newspaper to now writing their third book.
Okay. That's a great creative approach, definitely. Would love to talk with you offline about it, but I don't see any problem. If you want to present it creatively, I don't see a problem with doing that.
Great.
So I don't see a problem with the narrative approach.
This person says since they've been working on a novel for 5+ years, they did start on it when they were still in their MFA program, but of course it's changed and evolved drastically. Is it still acceptable to submit this as their work sample project?
As it has evolved and it's changed since that time, yes.
When we label our work with genre, do we say fiction or do we also include the subgenre?
You can just label it as fiction. If you want to include the subgenre, you can. It's not a requirement though.
And then someone asked, do they sign the artist statement, put their signature on it?
You do not have to do that. Just a submission is really your execution of the, of your package, or your signature on your package.
And then someone be on the resume.
Jessica, repeat that. You were breaking up just a little bit.
Oh, apologies. Someone asks, what should be on the resume?
Okay. So it should be a representation of your history as a writer. At least the last 5 years, but it can be more. I would just say focus on your writing, in terms of experience, professional experience, etc., as it relates to writing. Beyond that, you can give me a call if you want more information, but yeah, just focus on your professional experience writing, all experience with writing, at least for the last 5 years.
Great. And then the next question is, of the 3 works for their work sample, do they need to all be fiction?
Yes. Yes, this is a call for fiction, so we're only considering works of fiction.
Okay. And then someone asks, is the synopsis necessary?
It is not. So that is up to the applicant submitting the application to determine if they want to submit a synopsis. Now, if you're submitting excerpts, it really may help the reviewer navigate your package better. So that's my advisement there.
Great.
The final determination of what you submit is up to you.
And then just kind of following on, there's another question about, does the synopsis count towards the page count?
It does. So
First
synopsis of 1 page means you have 24 additional pages max that you can submit.
Great. Someone asked, what are the expectations or suggestions for using the financial gift?
There are no expectations. So we ask that the funds be used to help in the furtherance of your artistic career, but there are no parameters around or any restrictions on how you use the money, other than we hope that it will be used in your artistic pursuits. It's more information on that in the guidelines as well.
Great. And this may also be in the guidelines, but is the artist statement, does it need to be double spaced?
It's okay to be double spaced, long as our word count isn't exceeded of 250 words.
Someone asked, does the artist statement with synopsis and story, is that one PDF?
Okay, synopsis plus what else, Jessica?
Artist statement, synopsis, and story.
Okay, artist statement is its own document, so it's not included with your work samples. So the synopsis and your excerpts are part of the 25-page maximum count. So those are separate documents.
Okay. And then there's just a statement that someone said the system did not allow them to upload their artist statement. They had to type it in. I would imagine that if they wanted to reopen that and actually upload it, then perhaps they should just get in touch
Sure.
with you about that.
Sure. Touch base with me and definitely identify yourself as having that issue, and I'll see what's happening there. We'll work through it.
Someone has a question about our organization overall mission and how it pertains to fiction.
Well, okay, so South Arts is looking to support what we consider a vital link in terms of literature for the country by identifying and celebrating our writers throughout our region. So the literature that is created in the American South has had a major impact on literature across the country and the world, to be honest. So what we're doing is making sure with all of the changes, whether they be in daily newspapers or magazines or journals, all of the changes that are going on, there are fewer and fewer opportunities for writers to engage in sustaining type activities using their ability to write or their life as a livelihood, as a way to earn a living. So, to reinvigorate this section or this particular discipline, literary arts, is to really say, hey, we value, or we know there is value in the work that writers do throughout the South. And we want to identify it, we want to promote it, we want to provide different opportunities for writers to engage more in. So, we talked about the Southern Prize and State Fellowships for Literary Arts being the first prong of a larger literary initiative. So another prong would be, other opportunities for small projects to write and research in the literary arts, as well as a annual or biannual literary convenings and throughout the South. So we are definitely looking to make sure that writers are engaged, that they have the ability to engage and to work to sustain themselves, because we know the importance of what they do and what they bring to the table in terms of the writing. So that goes to the vitality statement. We want to make sure our communities are have the vitality, that we sustain that, and that we know writers are kind of catching it right now in terms of not having as many opportunities as they had, say, 10, 20, 30 years ago. So we're trying to figure out how do we bridge that gap.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thank you, Emmett, for that explanation. I want to just kind of check in on time. We're at 1:46. We have about, and I've been going through and trying to answer some of the questions.
Okay.
We may not be able to get through all of your questions, but please, if you have something that's not answered in the guidelines or in reviewing this webinar, please reach out to Emmett. But I'm going to keep going until we can, we'll try to get through as many of these as possible.
Okay.
But if you're putting in questions just now, we may not be able to get to them because there's quite a few ahead of you in the queue. Someone commented they're confused. They can't put their names on their applications, which makes sense. But how does that work with writing that has already been published?
Yeah. So I provided a bit of clarification on that. This is not an anonymous review process. So it's okay if you put your name on the writing sample at this point. I went back into Lightroom and updated that information so that has been taken out. So It is okay to put your name on it. It's not an anonymous review process. The jurors will have, they will be privy to who submitted the works.
The next question is a eligibility question that they would like some clarification on. They're from Nashville. They've lived there for a while, but they just graduated with an MFA program in the Midwest. However, their permanent residency has still been maintained in Nashville, driver's license, so forth and so on. Would they still be eligible since they're still technically a permanent resident of Tennessee?
Yes. If you're a permanent resident of Tennessee, you can prove that. It's no problem.
Great. Someone asks about how many panelists are there.
Can be up to 10 panelists across both review processes. So
great. Someone asked, I think you've kind of answered this, but they've lived in 2 different states over the past 2 years. Do they need driver's license from both states?
Are they South Arts regional states?
Yes, Tennessee, North Carolina.
It's a possibility. If it's right at a year, you might have to submit a copy of both. If you would just give me send me an email or give me a call, that'll be fine. I can review it with you directly.
Okay. And do the panelists see the artist statement?
Yes. Panelists do have the ability to review the artist statement.
Will South Arts get in touch with applicants directly via their direct email or via slide room?
So whatever email great. Thank you for asking that. Whatever email that you have listed in slide room, whatever phone contact information that you have listed in slide room, that's the information that we have for you. So that's the way that we will be in touch with you. So monitor the email. I have instances where I have folks or applicants who register with an email that they only use for certain occasions, and probably applications is one of them. They don't really monitor it as often as they probably should. So I would inevitably get an email saying, hey, what's the status of this? And I say, hey, we emailed the application status 2 weeks ago. So just again, if you don't monitor the email address or the phone that you have, typically we use email, but in certain circumstances we may use the phone. So if you don't monitor, just be sure to monitor those different accounts as much as you can. And we're looking to make those announcements again in spring. So we're looking probably between April and May of 24.
Great.
Okay.
Someone asked if artist statement should be in first person or third person.
We don't, again, the artist statement is a work of creative work from the artist. So we don't really say, it's not a preference for either way. However you want to present it, we leave it up to you.
Someone said they joined a bit late and came in at the end of the statements about published authors being able to use their previously published books as the sample, or do they have that wrong? So is that allowable, previously published?
So we're looking at works created in the last 5 years. So it could be published works, and you can submit works that have not been published. So that's correct. So we are considering published and unpublished works that have been created within the last 5 years.
Someone asked, can they include writing samples outside of the body of work? I believe you already answered that one. Well, can we include, let me finish. Okay. Can we include writing samples outside of the body of work we're currently focusing on and our artist statement working on?
So my advisement there is that you submit the strongest work your strongest work. and you do that assessment of what you consider to be your strongest work. And if you're talking about developing your artist statement and focus on the body of work within the artist statement, whatever you submit, I think it should be aligned with your artist statement should be aligned with the work samples that you submit.
Someone says they just want to clarify, is the submission deadline Friday, September 8th or Monday, September 11th? The slide stated Monday, September 8th.
Just a second. It's the 8th, September 8th. I may have gotten the day of the week wrong. So it's September 8th, Friday?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. It's Friday, September 8th. We'll correct that.
Great. Let's go through. I believe some of these I'm just sort of looking at that may have already been answered or may be answered in the guidelines, but I don't want to skip anything. The next one is let's see, my thing keeps moving down. Since the work is a full-length novel, thinking about their submission, will they need the whole book before making a decision, or will the decision be based only what is sent?
Only on the work sample submitted. So you need to rely on those 25 pages that you present to the jurors, and that is what will be considered.
Someone just has a short story collections. I guess, are those eligible samples?
Yes.
So
Go ahead. I was going to say, just in follow up to short stories, I'm not sure how short the story is, if it's 25 pages or if it's going to be a collection of stories that say are 10 pages or so. But yes, short stories are eligible. Short stories of fiction are eligible. And you may, again, it's up to you, but definitely if you're submitting multiple stories or multiple works, that you include a synopsis.
Is YA genre fiction, YA fantasy eligible?
I would have to read, I don't know what that is right off.
Young audiences?
Oh, young readers.
Young adult.
Yeah, young reader fiction is not inside of this particular call for fiction. We do have it's scheduled for 2028.
Someone asks, is it possible to get feedback on attachment materials prior to submitting? Like review the artist statement.
Based on the volume that the volume of applications received, we are not able to provide feedback.
Yeah, that's correct, because you said you have over 200 already and we've extended the deadline. Someone asked if they could get your email address again. They missed it the first time.
Sure.
So that contact slide is back up.
My contact information is there. eStevenson@southarts.org. And if you go click through on the guidelines, there's a tab called Technical Assistance. You can schedule a technical assistance session with me. If you're not able to do that, just send me an email and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. I know that the deadline is approaching, so as soon as you send it to me, I'll get back to you right away.
Great. The work samples are from a published book. Is it all right to mention the title of the published work in the synopsis?
Sure. Yes, it's okay.
Um, just someone wants to be clear, a self-published author can apply for any grants even though they live in a county that might not be recognizable in Georgia. I think, I'm not sure what the question specifically is. They also said thanks for the presentation. But this is not specifically to, they live in a county that may not be recognizable in Georgia.
As long as you live in the state, I'm not sure what that means by not recognizable, but
Yeah.
let me riff off of it for a second. As long as you live in the state of Georgia, you're in the South Arts region. So from that perspective, you're eligible to apply. If you're self-published, it's, you know, you don't have to be published to apply to this particular grant program. So being self-published is great. You can apply if you're self-published.
Mm-hmm. Someone asked that now that the panelists will have the name of the writer, is there an expectation that they will look them up online?
Possibly. They may look for, they may do a search for your additional works. You know, what we're going to consider, though, what the panelists will be charged with considering is the work samples that you submitted.
Yeah. And I would say, having reviewed grants in the past, that a lot of times you have so many in front of you that you don't have the time to go and investigate. You're really looking at the material in front of you, and
Exactly.
that should stand up on its own merit.
Exactly. And we control, when we have those panel discussions, we control for bringing outside information within the discussion. So I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Someone says, is there any preference that 25 pages come from the beginning of a longer work?
It's no preference. I think, again, I'm going to say it's artist preference. So what you consider to be strongest movement within a piece of work, I say go with that.
Yeah. Someone asked, aside from the panelists and folks at South Arts, who has access to the artist's statement?
That's it.
Yeah.
Only South Arts staff, and really it's just me and possibly an assistant director, my assistant director, and the panelists. That's it.
Some are just other questions about your email. Somebody has a question about when they submitted the application, there was only a box to paste it in, not an upload spot. Will they need to resubmit?
So they could not.
It sounds like they had some trouble uploading some part of the, like the PDFs or part of the application.
Okay. So again, just touch base with me in email. We'll sort that out. I apologize for any technical challenges you all experienced. So we'll get it straightened out, though.
Yeah. This says, when you say that applicants cannot currently be enrolled in a literary arts program of study, does that include primarily those pursuing MFA degrees? Would it include someone pursuing an English degree?
Good question.
You have to think on that one.
Yeah, I have to think about that. I think it depends on, if you're in the English program, are you studying? What are you studying?
Yeah, that might be an individual conversation,
Yeah.
especially since we're kind of running at the hour. But sometimes English, I mean, it really just depends on. I think the differentiation is an MFA versus like maybe an MA degree.
So touch base with me on that question, and we'll definitely sort that out.
Someone asked who supports the funding for this particular grant.
who supports the funding is we have private funders as well as the state's arts agencies.
Do we need to reference how we plan to use the funds in the application?
No, it's no information on budget or anything, but the expectation is that we don't really have any restrictions on use of the funds. We just ask that you use the funds to further your artistic pursuits.
Great.
Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a few more questions. I'm also just sending some. I think if there's any that I'm skipping, it's usually the ones around technical support. So issues with uploading, any issues with the applications. There's not a ton of those, but I feel like we could consolidate that into just sending you an email and letting you know so you can forward that on to our IT team so they can help with that. Let's see. Again, some of these are just thank yous. Do you plan to recognize finalists who are shortlisted for the prize or only one winner per state?
Typically, it's the winner per state. But thank you for the suggestion. We may look into doing that.
Do most writers have their work professionally edited before they submit?
There is no requirement in terms of professional editing before submission. I've received that question actually before. There's no requirements for it. So if you want to do that, you can. If you want to submit it as it is, then that's fine too.
Emmett, someone is having a little bit of trouble reading your email. Do you mind showing it again? Oh, you already did that. Okay, someone else actually helped answer that for us. Thank you.
Sure. I hope it's big enough on the screen that you can see it.
It's a little small, but the presentation will be available on the website.
We'll have it up, and you know, if all else fails, go to southarts.org. You can look under staff or you can look under the guidelines and it'll give you my email address, eStevenson@southarts.org.
Someone asked about various types of subgenres or you submitting work samples. So for example, realistic, fantasy, historical, or should they all be one subgenre under fiction?
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So it says, for the submission of our work samples, may we submit examples of various subgenres, realistic, fantasy, historical, or should they be one subgenre, ergo all realistic?
I'm gonna go back to saying that it's, you know, artist selection. So you select what you consider to be your strongest work. Put your strongest work forward. So if it falls into those categories, okay. If it, if it falls to multiple of those categories, okay. If it falls into just one, that's okay too. So again, it's your selection on what you consider to be your strongest work.
Someone says their novel is in the genre fiction or upmarket fiction. They don't see that as one of the subcategories listed. Does it still qualify for submission?
Yeah, I mean, we know that's not an exhaustive list of categories. I think I've kind of mentioned that further, at the top of the presentation. It's fine if it's still fiction and it may incorporate a number of those subgenres, or it may not be listed at all. It's fine. You can still submit it.
We have a few more questions in here. I know we're running on time. Someone has asked, once the winners have been announced, how is the gift, the funds distributed? Is there a schedule or is it one lump sum?
Typically, it's a lump sum, and through electronic funds transfer.
Someone asked, can they include reviews of past works?
No, don't include the reviews. Just include your work samples. That's the most effective way.
Yeah, and I mean, someone had asked, could they put like awards and other accolades on your resume? I mean, you certainly can, even though the panelist won't see that.
Right, right. So if it's on your Vita or your resume, definitely include it. But as a standalone in terms of the work samples, do not include it there.
And someone asked, could the work be from a complete but unpublished manuscript?
Yes.
Yes. Someone asked about the stories are set in the late 90s in New Orleans. Is that okay?
Yes.
They were, yeah, so there's no restrictions on.
There's no restrictions.
Yeah. I'm looking again. Someone says, where is the submission located? I have a published title from 2021. I could use that, or can a writer submit an unpublished work?
You can submit unpublished works, definitely.
Okay. If the writer is unsure of the genre besides fiction, will that affect their entry?
It doesn't. As long as it's fiction.
Someone said on the first page of our work sample, do we start at the top or halfway down the page as some places prefer?
Start at the top. So take advantage of the full page.
Yeah. Take advantage of all of the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of them are questions I think that we've already answered. There is an interesting comment about someone who's a fundraiser in addition to being a writer. Woohoo. Where does your funding come from, and how do they help support South Arts?
So the state arts agencies support this program, as well as we have some private funders. We're always looking for funders as well. So maybe that's an offline conversation. You get in touch with me, let's talk.
Well, great. That is really all of our questions that we went through. I know we went through a lot there. So thank you, Emmett, for taking the time to answer those questions for everyone. And again, apology about the, for the technical difficulties at the beginning, but I'm glad we were able to record this. So we will have it available later on the website.
All right. So thanks so much for joining us. If my answers did not necessarily address your questions fully, definitely follow up with me, eStevenson@southarts.org, and we can talk further about it. Again, apologies for the confusion on the application deadline date. That is Friday, September 8th, not Monday. Friday, September 8th is the deadline. That's 2023. And I look so forward to receiving your applications. If you want to make adjustments to your applications, send me an email so that I can open your application back up. You'll have to make your updates and resubmit the application. No additional charges, you just have to resubmit it back into the system. So
great.
Thanks so much for joining us. And thank you, Jessica, for your help.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Emmett. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Bye-bye.